Carney Show, welcome back. Second book. He's now written 2 more than I've read. Inner Guru, the guide to mastering your health, wealth, and relationships. From the inside out, Charles D'Angelo, no stranger to this frequency either, as he used to be a regular on with McGraw. And
yes.
Judging from the expanding morning show host, you obviously haven't seen him in a while.
I have not seen McGraw in quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Well, you need to come back more often.
Well, it's a journey without a finish line. I think we can all attest to it's a perpetual process. And so many people find that they think that there's some point in time where they can say, I'm finished with this. And you really can't. I was once 360 pounds, so I know that it's not something that you can put some type of termination date on.
Do you even remember that guy, though?
Oh, certainly.
You show that picture of you. It's not sitting on lawn furniture. You were the lawn furniture.
I was 360 pounds. I had a size 50-inch waist. Making up a flight of just 4 stairs was difficult for me. I had no social life. I was bullied. I was teased. So I always tell people when they come into work with me, there's always 2 Charleses sitting in front of them. There's the Charles of today, energetic, confident, certain, articulate, and then there's that very bullied, teased, fearful boy that
does he come out? Does he surface?
He certainly is part of the process in the work I do with those that I serve. In fact, I think that much of the pain that I experienced as a kid that was bullied and made fun of is what fuels my passion to help other people. So when you go through a lot of suffering, when you really go through an experience that either it can create in you an inspiration or a desperation to change, it changes you. And many people going through the type of thing I went through may have made different choices. So I always am a proponent of teaching people. It's not what happens to us, but it's our responsiveness to the things that happen that ultimately determine the quality of our life and how it goes.
What happened in your life that made you turn things around?
I don't think it's ever one thing. For me specifically, it was a culmination of many things. I was almost 18 years old. I was 16, 17 years old. Again, I had looked around me in my family of origin. My father's family all struggled with obesity. Both my grandparents were morbidly overweight. My father was obese. My mother's side, while they were slight, they were not overweight, struggled with addiction. So they used substances, alcohol namely, to deal with the more difficult feelings that come up as givens of life. And I think that in all the years of work I've been doing this, all the years I've been coaching people, I found it's very rarely ever about the food. So the book, Inner Guru, is all about learning how to disconnect from being spontaneous with food or any substance. Some people use alcohol. Some people use sex. Some people use achievement. Some people turn to relationship after relationship. It's trying to fill this void, this awareness in oneself with something that you can never get enough of. And it's because you don't need it. So I often tell people you can never get enough of what you don't need. That's how you know that really that path you're on is the path really to a lot of destruction.
Go back to that sex part for a minute.
Oh, Lord.
No, I would think, though.
No, I think it's very relevant, frankly, John. I deal with a lot of people that do find they're trying to gratify themselves through things that will never really do the job. So
what's the job?
The job is finding meaning, finding a sense of groundedness, finding a sense of purpose. I think we're all after that at some level.
But isn't meaning different to me than it is to you?
Absolutely. I think that each of us have a unique calling, a vocation, and using substances or using activities such as those that lead us down a path of, ultimately, again, destruction, takes us away from that process. It's very intimidating for someone who perhaps grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of space to come to terms with what it means to be vulnerable or to let themselves feel sad or angry or afraid, to actually step in that space. And so often you'll find people, you mentioned the sexuality side of things, people will use sex or anything else as a way of trying to validate their worthiness. But what they find is they go from person to person to person. Other people go from food to food to food. Other people from alcohol. It doesn't really matter. It's all very, very empty at the end of the road. And I have the privilege of helping people that are at the height of their career, that are billionaires, literally, and people that are garbage collectors. And I find that while the people are very different, the patterns aren't. So once you understand the pattern, I've been privileged to coach thousands of people the last 15 years. Once you see those patterns, you can quickly help a person understand it and then change it. And by changing the pattern, you can change your entire outcome.
You've said like 4 times, I've been privileged to do this. I've been privileged to work with people for 15 years. I've been privileged. You know, I would think the same thing happens with a psychiatrist. you help people, but day in and day out, somebody is sitting across from you saying, I can't push myself away from the table. I don't know what it is.
Well, let's start
I just
there. The first thing is...
Don't you get tired of hearing this?
Absolutely not. Because
why?
Two reasons. One is, when a person says that, it's really irrelevant. If a person makes an appointment, obviously they're motivated. If a person makes it in front of me, then they're really just telling me they're afraid of taking the steps necessary. If you set up an appointment and you come to my office, it's obvious you have motivation. That doesn't mean you're absent fear. What I really help people to do is reduce fear. Get to the point where they're willing to act on what they know consistently. Get to a point where they follow through. How many of us do something for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, but then fall back into that old pattern?
But how do you stay enthusiastic about it? I know what people are doing with their shortcomings. But
the secret to staying enthusiastic in terms of your relationship, in terms of your professional career, in terms of your own self-care, is if you find it difficult to care enough about yourself, learn to care about something greater than yourself. I always tell those that I coach, and again, my specialty really, and what I've become most well known for, are the dramatic physical transformations of clients. Clients have lost 100, 150, 200, 250 pounds. But again, by eliminating the weight as an issue, we come to terms with what the real core issue is. I've had clients that have emailed me after losing 50, 60, 70 pounds, and they'll say something like, I just don't feel as motivated as I once did.
So this is more psychological. I mean, because you have to imagine if somebody has 150 pounds to lose, I'm sure they've tried the app. I'm sure they've tried Weight Watchers. I'm sure they've tried
Let's do away with this whole try thing again, too. There is no trying. Either you're doing something or you're not doing it.
She's got a Peloton now.
That's fantastic. So we have, in regard to many people's
Sorry. Yeah.
In regard to many people's resolution to get fit, they approach it from one angle, that is exercise. So they buy a Peloton bike, or they join a gym, or they hire a trainer. But I think if you don't have all three pieces in regard to the weight issue in place, that is the right strategy with food, so no longer are you making yourself vulnerable to hunger, the right exercise so that you are creating the momentum necessary to have the energy you want, but most importantly, the right mindset.
And you can't out-exercise a bad diet.
You can never, ever, ever. They always say abs aren't created in the gym. They're created in the kitchen, right? So it's all about making certain that you have those three things. Making sure you make those three things work together. But I think enthusiasm, John, comes from having a mission bigger than yourself. And I think a relationship, I noticed on your Facebook just recently, you put a lot of focus on your wife, and I think that's beautiful. I'm privileged to have a wonderful wife.
So nice.
And I see that she's your profile picture, frankly.
That poor woman.
I've had the privilege of meeting her, too. But I tell you that because how is it that relationship works? How is it a second marriage might work better than the first? I think we all mature to a point where self-denial, putting aside our own needs for something greater than ourselves, becomes our philosophy. And when that becomes your philosophy, you'd be amazed at how much room there is for you to grow.
What about somebody who hasn't made it to your office yet, who hasn't made that phone call yet?
You need to put yourself in a place.
And they want to do this.
I think you need to find a place that's challenging you to get stimulated in the sense that if you're finding that you're the smartest, you're the most fit person in the room you're in the wrong room. So you've got to put yourself in an environment that's going to challenge you, that's going to stimulate you to grow. Now, some people don't think it's possible. Some people say, I'm 200 pounds overweight. There's no way I can do it. Well, if you think that's the case, go to my website and look at the dozens and dozens and dozens. That's not hyperbole or exaggeration. Literally dozens of people who've lost that much weight and more. But that's not really, in my mind, the way we quantify success. Because how many people do we know that lose that type of weight only to 2, 3, 5 years later fall back to those old habits? That's why if you don't address the core issue, what's the core issue? Loving yourself enough to make these types of daily disciplines a routine, to actually pay attention to what's going on with you, not distract yourself with humor and trivia, but really ask yourself, what am I up to here? Pay attention to that. Accept yourself as you are. If you're not able to watch the stream, Julie's smiling as I'm talking. Appreciate yourself. Also, show your body the affection it deserves and make space for the feelings you're having. If you're using substances to do those things, if you feel there's no hope for you, I'm proof, as are the thousands of people I've worked with, that of course it's possible, but you have to believe that you deserve it. And until you believe you deserve it, you're going to find yourself taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back in that vicious whirlpool of self-defeat.
What about the trigger? What about the person that loses the 50, 60, 80, 100 pounds and then falls off the wagon big time, puts the weight back on? with some friends. What's that moment where that turns? What causes that trip up? I think probably not just one thing.
No, I think there's a couple things. One is our peer group, who we spend time with, has a huge influence on who we become. So you need to be very vigilant about what you consume. I always tell people my program is really a consumption program, not just food. I'm not a dietitian or nutritionist, but a consumption program. And what are you allowing to influence you? Where are you spending most of your mental time? What are you putting your focus on? Are you thinking about what's possible, or are you thinking about what's limiting you? Are you thinking that the best is behind you or the best is in front of you? All of those types of things are going to set you up for what direction you're going to go. So
I think I'm really watching too much Bravo.
This is, yeah. What did you say? You like Vanderpump?
Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, don't get her started, Charles.
Yes, but it's interesting to see that so many people put so much time into upgrading their technology, but very little time into upgrading their mindset. So it's all about upgrading the way you're thinking in such a way, and understanding, secondly, that progress is not linear. So, John, it's not a straight line. People often ask, hosts ask, those that are cynical, of course, there are many of them, would say, well, that's great, all these people lose weight working with you, but, how many of your clients really keep it off? And I always say that I won't be able to get a real answer to that until every one of them are dead. Because there are many that keep it off 3, 4, 5 years, but then have a setback. But that's just a setup for a comeback. So you've got to have some compassion for yourself. And looking at this from a judgmental perspective of, well, I should be able to do better. I think if you come at it from a more compassionate angle and you say, look, I went through a difficult time. I've had clients that have lost children to suicide. I've had clients that have lost their spouse. I have clients that lose their jobs. If we have no room for that, if we have no understanding of that within ourselves, how well do you really think you're going to relate to other people? So my clients have been as great of teachers to me as I have to them.
Well, you talk about this not being a straight line, but for you, it has been. From that fat
From
kid
the outside
on the
looking in, it's always a straight line. That's what everyone thinks. I have had the opportunity to spend some time with some really wonderful and well-known folks, and I don't say to impress anybody, but to impress upon you people like John Carney. While on the outside, it seems as if he has everything together. He has his challenges too.
Just like
you're kidding.
Now I know that he comes across quite commanding and all of that, but no, in all honesty, with regard to people that are in very high positions of authority, every one of us is human, and we all kind of project onto others what we don't acknowledge in ourselves. And I think the more that we can demythalize ourselves, that is, get back in touch with we're humans. We're doing the best we can. Even the greatest therapists, the greatest psychiatrists, to your point earlier, they have marital conflicts. My wife and I have arguments. It's not that we don't have arguments.
Already? You just got married.
We've had arguments since the moment we've been together.
Charles.
I think that the sign of a healthy relationship with yourself and the sign of a healthy relationship with anyone else is the way you handle the problems, the way you address them, that you do it in a loving and kind way. But you can't do that with another person until you learn to do that with yourself first.
The book is Inner Guru, and this is the second book out.
This is the second book. The first book was called Think and Grow Thin, and that was all about the strategies to free yourself from these challenges that come up when you use food in a destructive way. This book is for those people that might want to go deeper into that, or that have other opportunities that they want to expand upon. Maybe they want to improve their relationships. Maybe they're not in a relationship and they want a relationship. Maybe that they find their financial health isn't where it really ultimately should be. But I find every discipline affects the other. So when I was helping so many people just with weight loss, which I still do a lot of, I found all those disciplines have direct applicability to these other areas of life. And so the book Inner Guru helps take those and teach people how to apply those disciplines to those specific areas.
Still pushing the almonds and the double meat turkey Subway sandwiches and the 6-ounce chicken breasts?
Absolute consistency with using food in a methodical and strategic way. So it's disconnecting from having any emotional charge to that. And I recommend a person choose a set of foods where every day they can be utterly consistent until they feel that there's no longer that pull, that kind of attraction to using food when they feel uncomfortable, when they feel uncertain, when they're in a social setting where it would be much more easy to give in to temptation like drinking alcohol.
That's interesting. So you just keep going with the same thing.
You disconnect from putting other people's opinions and approvals ahead of your own authority. You reclaim your own power. No longer are you giving it away to society to expectations. You're saying, this is what I'm doing for me. My goals, needs, my wishes, my desires are important enough to take care of myself. So until you're ready to take that step, you're going to find, again, you might make a little progress, but in my estimation, it's going to be short-lived. You have to really look at yourself as being worth making these types of shifts. And if you don't feel you are worth it, but you're in a relationship, or if you have children, you said, what if someone's out there and they have 100 pounds to lose, but they don't think they can do it? Ask yourself, do you believe your spouse, your partner, your children deserve to have the mother, the father that they really, really, I think, would get a lot more from by having someone healthy model those types of behaviors.
Now, with the food plan, with the people that come to you and try to lose some weight, and you get them on a pretty strict regimen, do they still get that one cheat meal a week?
Of course he goes
there. That was
there.
the most important thing ever.
Again, it's all about finding an approach, a strategy that's going to allow for someone to continue forward. If you reinforce the very issue that you're bringing to the table, it's not probably the best idea. So that's like, can I go to AA and once I have my 30 days, can I have a drink? Okay, it's the same idea. I have really grown in the approach I take with people. There's no cookie cutter. So there are some clients that might have a meal that's slightly different than what they typically would. But if there's an emotional charge to it, like a longing, like a need, that's a good indication that that wouldn't be an appropriate course of action.
Charles D'Angelo, find him online also, charlesdangelo.com. Book 2 is out. It is Inner Guru. I don't know why we don't do this more often.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I know you got to go see clients, but let's do it when we can do phones and stuff, because
certainly we're
getting to those waning resolution moments where people are like,
resolutions don't work unless you're really going to shift your identity and understand that now is no better a time than a month ago was. Until you really make it something that's going to be more integral to who you are, again, you're going to be making the same resolution next year that you did this year.
Good to see you. And again, congratulations on the bride.
Thank you very much.
And the book.
Thank you very much.
And what?
The book?
Oh, I said the buck.
No, the book.
Congratulations on a beautiful family, John. I really, really admire how much love I see that you have for your wife and for your kids.
Thank you. And she's got a Peloton now.
I do. I have a Peloton.
And if anyone hasn't checked it out, you should see John's son do stand-up. It's remarkable. I love the puzzle joke.
He wrote it all. Good to see you, Charles.
Good to see you.